The WNBA had been chasing mainstream relevance for nearly 3 decades, but nothing worked, until Caitlin Clark arrived. She wasn't just another draft pick. She was a walking headline, the kind of once-in-a-generation player who could fill arenas on her own. From the moment she stepped onto a college court, Clark was a phenomenon. Sold-out crowds, record-breaking viewership, and highlights that went viral almost every single night. And when she finally made the jump to the WNBA, the league treated her like the savior they had been waiting for. Ticket prices skyrocketed the second her name appeared on a schedule. Indiana Fever home games? Impossible to get into unless you were willing to pay hundreds of dollars. Road games? Teams literally moved to bigger arenas just to squeeze in more fans desperate to see her play live. And it wasn't just ticket sales. Merchandise sales exploded by over 500%. ESPN and other major networks started giving the WNBA prime slots, putting Clark front and center as the face of women's basketball. Even travel conditions changed. Players who had spent years complaining about commercial flights suddenly found themselves on charter planes, and let's be honest, that wasn't because of league progress. That was because Caitlin Clark brought so much money and attention that the WNBA couldn't afford to keep running like a second-tier operation. For the first time, people were seriously talking about women's basketball as a must-watch product, and it all revolved around one player. But just when it looked like the league had finally turned a corner, disaster struck.
The WNBA are currently treading dangerous waters. It's sharks out there, y'all. It is sharks out there in the deep ends of that water. Reality is hitting, and the playoffs have the potential to expose even more. Ratings could potentially crash in this year's WNBA playoffs without Caitlin Clark. Networks have their eyes peeled to what is going on, and ticket prices plummeted 30% while Caitlin Clark was out.
For all the hype and spotlight Caitlin Clark brought, there was one thing people never questioned about her: durability. Through 4 years of college dominance, she never missed a single game. Even in her rookie WNBA season, she powered through every matchup, no matter how physical, no matter how hostile the environment. She was reliable, unstoppable, and seemingly untouchable. But 2025 changed everything. From the very first month of the season, fans noticed the hits were different. Opponents weren't just playing defense, they were targeting her. Elbows to the ribs, knees to the thighs, constant pushing and grabbing off the ball. It wasn't basketball, it was a strategy. And the strategy was simple: beat her down physically until she broke. By mid-season, Clark was clearly battered. A quad injury here, a groin pull there, signs that her body was taking more punishment than it ever had before. Fans were worried. Analysts started asking if the league was doing enough to protect its biggest star. And the truth? They weren't. Then came the news no one wanted to hear. The Indiana Fever made the announcement. Caitlin Clark was done for the year. A season-ending injury. The Golden Goose, the face of the WNBA, sidelined just 13 games into what was supposed to be her most important season yet. In one press release, the WNBA's dream scenario evaporated. The league's biggest draw, its top storyline, its entire business model, gone. The player who single-handedly filled arenas, boosted ratings, and gave the league cultural relevance was suddenly out of the picture. And the fallout wasn't just bad, it was immediate. Because the second Clark went down, the WNBA economy collapsed almost overnight.
Before Caitlin Clark's season-ending injury, WNBA tickets were averaging $89. The moment she went down, price crashed nearly 30%, plummeting to $62 a seat. That's kind of crazy. And there's a lot of reasons for this, but obviously the biggest reason...
The moment Caitlin Clark's injury went public, the market spoke louder than any press release could. Overnight, ticket prices collapsed. Before the injury, WNBA tickets were averaging $89, a number the league proudly bragged about as proof of its growth. But the second Clark was ruled out. Those same seats dropped to $62 on average. That's a nearly 30% crash in value in just hours. And for the Indiana Fever, the team that built its entire season around Clark's star power, the hit was devastating.
Fans shared similar reactions to the drastic change in ticket prices following Clark's injury. Because it's unwatchable without her, someone else added, did her injury deflate ticket prices or just prove she's the entire league's economy? Another person wrote, honestly, I'm surprised it isn't more than that. I would have guessed 50%. No matter what you think about Clark, she brings people to watch. We're lucky to be able to see her. I hope she comes back strong. You don't have to like her, but she is the headline and puts butts in.
Road game tickets that had been selling for $137? They fell off a cliff, tumbling down to just $80, a jaw-dropping 71% drop in demand. That's not a dip. That's a market collapse. Even the playoffs, the supposed crown jewel of the WNBA, weren't immune. Games that had been selling for over $200 a seat suddenly struggled to move tickets at $25. $25 for playoff basketball. Think about that. People went from paying premium prices to avoiding seats even at bargain levels. And here's the harsh reality. It wasn't just Indiana. Across the league, arenas scrambled to fill space without Clark on the floor. Teams that had opened upper bowls in massive stadiums when the Fever came to town were suddenly closing sections back up. 10,000 seats were tough enough to sell. 20,000? Forget it. The truth was undeniable. Without Clark, the WNBA product simply wasn't worth the price of admission to most fans. And ticket prices were just the beginning. Because when the fans stopped showing up, the cameras stopped rolling.
Now, you know, them Caitlin Clark tickets was hard to get your hands on. It don't matter if she was playing in LA, Indiana, Atlanta, Seattle. It did not matter. Afghanistan. It didn't matter. It was hard to get your hands on a Caitlin Clark ticket. Y'all see how many people showed up in Iowa? They could have filled up a football stadium. A football stadium. Super Bowl. Yeah, that.
If plummeting ticket prices were the first warning sign, the TV numbers confirmed the disaster. The WNBA had been riding high on the Clark effect. Her games pulled in 1.8 million viewers or more, massive numbers compared to what the league was used to. Sports talk shows couldn't get enough of her. YouTubers churned out highlight videos daily. ESPN treated her like appointment viewing. But the second she stepped off the court, those numbers collapsed. Nationally televised games that once rivaled NBA broadcasts now struggled to scrape together 200,000 viewers. That's an 89% decline, the kind of nosedive networks hate to admit publicly. In fact, some stopped releasing ratings altogether, embarrassed by how low the viewership had sunk.
Ratings for nationally televised games have mysteriously disappeared. I knew the WNBA lived in a world of make-believe, but I never realized they were magicians. It seems when ratings fail to meet expectations, the WNBA makes ratings disappear faster than pants at the Butt Bongo Festival. Sports Media Watch, which is the go-to source for sports ratings, Sports Media Watch, they have not updated WNBA ratings since August.
Even the All-Star Game, which the league hyped as a success with 2.2 million viewers, was actually down 36% compared to the Clark-fueled spectacle the year before. That's like bragging about having a party when half the guests didn't show up. And here's where it got even worse. The media itself moved on. Just a year earlier, Clark was leading ESPN shows, sparking debates on FS1, and driving viral content across social media. This season, silence.
The WNBA playoffs begin on Sunday. Have you noticed that no one is talking about it? This time last year, the WNBA was dominating talk shows on ESPN and FS1. Content creators on YouTube were flooding the platform with WNBA videos. This year, it's complete silence. Obviously, ratings for the playoffs are going to be a flaming ass fire. But if
analysts like Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock, who used to spend entire segments on Clark, barely mentioned the WNBA at all. YouTube creators who made careers out of covering her stopped uploading WNBA content. The storylines the league tried to push in her absence, rivalries, playoff drama, rising stars, fell completely flat. Fans weren't interested. Broadcasters weren't interested. Even the sports media giants who had invested millions in promoting the WNBA suddenly had no reason to keep pushing. Without Clark, the WNBA wasn't just losing viewers, it was losing relevance. And when the cameras go dark, the money follows.
Other than a Nike commercial, other than a Gatorade commercial, how many commercials have you seen of companies putting WNBA players as the face of their commercial? I can't think of one. The only commercial that comes to mind is the Paige Becker's Coach commercial, and they don't even put that on television. That seems to be strictly a League Pass commercial that they show us while we're watching WNBA on League Pass. Other than that, has there been any State Farm commercials not featuring Caitlin Clark that you've seen throughout
The ticket crash and ratings freefall were brutal enough, but the real damage came when the money started drying up. During Caitlin Clark's rookie year, merchandise sales exploded by over 500%. Jerseys, shirts, posters, you name it, it sold out. Stores couldn't keep Clark gear on the shelves. But once the injury news hit, that momentum vanished. Without Clark driving demand, WNBA merch suddenly looked like dead stock. Retailers who had bet big on women's basketball were left with racks of unsold inventory. And it didn't stop there. Big-name sponsors who had rushed to partner with the league, Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, were suddenly re-evaluating their investments. Let's be real. Those deals weren't about the league as a whole. They were about Caitlin Clark. With her sidelined, the WNBA didn't have another star who could deliver the same cultural buzz or guarantee eyeballs.